welcome back to some Photoshop Advanced techniques. In this video we're going to learn how to do a little skin softening. Now there are a multitude of ways to do skin softening. This is a way that I saw on Kelby Training that I thought was pretty unique. Now it's not so much advanced in its methodology so much as it is in its technique, because it will take some practice. I don't know that you could even do it with a mouse. You'd almost need a Wacom tablet, but you know, you probably could. I've been surprised by people who are really good with mice and trackpads. But either way, I'm just going to show you what you can do. What I like about this technique, and probably the biggest problem with skin softening, is that generally people will go in there and they just destroy the texture of the skin. Now we're going to do a little bit of that, but you want to keep texture without destroying, you want to soften the skin without destroying the texture of the skin at the same time. So this particular technique actually allows you to do a little sculpting and soften the skin at the same time, and requires you to sometimes constantly adjust the opacity of your brush, somewhere probably between 5 and 20%. And constantly be taking skin sample colors. So you're definitely going to want to know some keyboard shortcuts here. They're just single keys. They're very easy. So like I said, this is a technique you're just going to want to practice. And you can even do some very, very light dodging and burning with this technique. But if you're not careful, you can just totally obliterate skin texture. So let's dive in here and let's talk about what we're going to do. Some things that you'll see that aren't really noticeable until after, and we'll see before and after. And again, this is a great picture. This is probably not the best picture to show because it doesn't have a lot of flawed skin or textures or whatever, to correct. But I think it has enough to where you'll see a difference. Nothing else, you'll see a difference. Whether you like it before or after is up to you. But again, we're just here to learn a technique. So I'm going to start right in here in this area of her face. Now, we got tons of layers. If you've been watching this video all the way through, I think this is part 7. But if you have, we've just been building and building and building layers. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to merge all these layers into a group. So I'm going to select the top layer. I'm going to scroll down here and select this bottom layer, and I'm going to hit Command G to group all these together. So now this is kind of a good way to see our before and after, at least on her face. And then what I want to do before we start smoothing skin is I want to merge all these layers to a layer on its own. We went over this keyboard shortcut earlier, and that is Shift Command Option E, and that blends everything we've done into this one layer. On a PC, that's Shift Control Option E. So now we have this new layer, and we can do whatever we want with it, and we still have preserved everything else we've done. But this new layer I just made is in this group. I don't want it in the group, so I'm dragging it. Not right there. You see the highlight around the whole thing? That won't do anything. If I let go, what did it do? It moved it to the bottom. That's definitely not what I wanted to do. So let's go back up here, and I want to move it to, you see a single line. See the difference between that double line that's around the whole group and a single line? That'll put it between the proposed edits in group 1, which is what I want. And it looks like I did not do that successfully. I'm just going to move it to the top. How's that? Now I'll move it down between these two. That's where I want it. So we can collapse this group. We'll leave it on. Well, actually, it doesn't really matter, but we'll leave it on. And so now we can start softening on this layer. We're going to create a new, this will be a new group. It'll be for skin softening. So let's go ahead and create a new group. I'll just hit Command G again, even though there's only one layer in there. And we'll call this skin. What we want to do is we're going to go over here and we're going to look at our channels. And we want to see which one of these channels is really kind of the smoothest, has the least amount of texture in it. And that's generally the red. And with skin tones, it's almost always the red. And if I see here and you go through here, each one of these you can always see the detail in the skin. And since we're smoothing, we really kind of want something that's more even. So with this, we're going to create a mask using the red channel. So here's how we're going to do that. We're going to hold down the Command key and we're going to select the red channel. So we click right here, and you can see our selection is very kind of sporadic. That's because the selection is either there or not, like at 50%. But really, in essence, what it's doing is it is selecting, which cannot be shown using marching ants here. But what the mask really looks like is shades of gray, and that's going to control how much we can and cannot edit, which is kind of nice because it keeps us from going overboard to a certain extent. So we have our selection. Let's go back to our RGB channel. Let's go back to our layers. Click on our active layer, and we're going to create a new layer. So that's Shift Command N, and we'll call this soften. Oops, maybe if I spell that right. Soften. And this, so we still with the selection active, we're going to create a mask layer. So I click this mask layer icon and see what our mask looks like. Do you remember what our other masks look like? Like, here's a basic mask. These are all basic compared to this. And you can see the shades of just different gray. So I'm going to show you what the mask looks like. If I hold down the Option or Alt key on the PC and I just click this, this is what our mask looks like, which looks exactly like the red channel. And that's what we want. The only difference is this is a mask. It's not the actual red channel. So I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key on the PC and click this mask again so that we see the whole thing. And now what I can do is I can start painting with my brush. So I'm going to jump over here to the brush tool by hitting B. And we want to paint with, let's just work on a very specific area. We want to paint with the color that we want for this area. Now I'm going to go to 20% opacity up here, and you can do that very easily. Once you're in a brush tool, the brush tool, you can use any of the numbers at the top of your keyboard. So 2 is 20%, 3 is 30%. If I hit 3.5, that's 35%. But you're going to want a good starting point is 20%. Then I'm going to sample the color. Obviously, I don't want to paint with white over here. It's our foreground color. I want to sample a skin color. You can easily do that without going to your eyedropper tool by just selecting the Option key on your keyboard and press and hold it. And then click down, and you'll see, watch this foreground color over here as I click around. You see it changing colors? Now it's changing to shades of gray, which we don't want. I'm glad this is happening because this was a mistake we will all make. And that's because the mask layer is selected. See this bracketed outline? I want to be on my layer itself, on the image itself. You see how that bracket changed? If I select over here, the bracket's over here. If I select over here, the bracket's over here. So now when I go over here, notice my foreground and background colors changed. So now if I hold down the Option key and I click around, you see the different colors I'm getting as I click. So if I want to click right here, and this is the color I want to paint with over here, I have that. I got my brush. I'm at 20%. And now I just start brushing in here. Now I'm using a Wacom tablet. This is pressure sensitive. Go up in here. Again, I'm going to click with my eyedropper tool. Make this brush a little bigger. Brush in here. Now what this is doing, it's taking that color and we're also evening out the tone in her skin up here. And it's very subtle. I don't know if through the video you can see, but it's very subtle. If you do this on your screen, you'll see it. And now as I go over here, we have a shadow going over here, so I don't want to bring this white all the way over here. So I'm going to take another quick sample here and kind of just follow this right in here. It's almost too light over there, so I'm going to darken it down a little bit. Now, I'm at 20%, and for me, that was too big of an adjustment. So I'm going to go down here to 10% by hitting the 1 key. I'm going to sample this color over here again and just lighten this up a little bit. Come back over here. I'm going to make this a little more consistent in here and up under here in her eye. And what I'm doing is I'm just trying to smooth, not only smooth the skin. Whoops, definitely didn't want to do that. I'm not only trying to smooth the skin, but I'm also trying to make the color more consistent. And you'll see this here in just a minute when we look at a before and after. Let me just do some of this. So I'm smoothing some of this texture. I'm darkening and lightening some of the texture. I'm evening out the color across her skin. And these are very subtle, very subtle. Here's some white under her eyes. And I'm just painting this in. I want to carry this color of her lash across here. I'm going to go back up to 20% here. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here while I'm at it. I'm constantly sampling this color. Going across here. This is getting rid of some of her, lightening some of the wrinkles. At the same time, we're smoothing the skin. This takes a little practice. I'm just going to tell you right now. It takes a little practice. I'm still not the best at it, not great at it, but you really need a combination of keystrokes, switching between the opacity, taking different colors. I'm going to go over here and smooth this out a little bit, at the same time bringing some more of this red, more consistent red. Let's look at some of our before and after and see where we are. Now this is definitely a case where you always want to go back over here and turn off and on this later, see what kind of work you're doing, because you can go crazy with this. So here's before and after. Before and after. And you can see I'm right on the verge of smoothing the skin, leveling out the light across her face, but I'm also, if I go probably any further than this, I'm going to start losing texture. You can see here, if we zoom in, we still have texture in the skin. When we're done here, I'm going to show you a lot, one of the first ways I learned how to soften skin. It was the easy, down and dirty, but it's really a bad way to soften skin. If you're trying to soften skin from people kind of far away, you can maybe get away with it, but I know we've all seen pictures of people on the internet or what have you, and they look like mannequins, and that's what you're trying to stay away from, unless of course that's the look you want. So let's continue on here. I'm going to come down here to her chin. We're going to usually have a little highlight on the chin. I'm going to go under her lip here and make this a little darker, bring this. These are just very subtle changes, but yet when you go back to look at the before and after, you'll see the difference. She really doesn't need much on her face here in the way of smoothing. Okay. I'm constantly sampling these colors and then, paint them back in. Okay. Getting rid of this. I don't know about getting rid of it, but. And when you see me keep going over the same spot, that's kind of dangerous to do because it can really cause a little too much. I'll go back here at 10% and kind of come back over this. And what I'm trying to do is just make, the shadows and the highlights a little more consistent. Like right here, we're seeing a little red, then a highlight, then it's not so dark, and it's darker. So we could make this a little more consistent. And the difficult part about this is you really got to kind of keep with what's already there. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. I'm at 10%. I'm going to go to 20%. Click on this. I'm going to bring this shadow down a little bit. This highlight I'm going to bring over here a little more. Bring this up. See, I might have made that, I might have goofed that up, but I'm going to leave it for now and see what it looks like. See So like I said, it's a great technique, but it does take a little practice. And you want it advanced, so here's advanced. Take that out a little bit. See, I want to make that shadow. And man, if you're not careful here, you can make her lip look funky. And I have a feeling I might be doing that. But let's see. Let's see what we did. Let's go back to the before and after. There's before, after. I think it looks pretty nice. Now on the before, she's got a little more shadow going over right here on her cheek, which gives it some definition. And I've kind of ruined that for her. So I want to put that back. So I'm going to go back in here, and I can almost see that line where I took it out. So I need to go back here and grab a shadow color, and then I'm going to come here with 20%, and I need something darker. I'm going to come back and see if I can add that. Now if I can't bring this back, which it looks like I'm not able to, I can just erase, because we're on our own layer, so I can erase. Let me erase with something soft, and I'm erasing at 100%. Let's go to like 30%. And I can kind of bring that back. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. Turn this off. So it's not too much darker. Actually, I'm going to go back down in here. See if we can bring that back. Now let's see our before and after, see how much is gone. So now it's not so bad. She still has some definition there. I'm going to maybe come up in here a little bit. But as I'm bringing that back, I'm also bringing back, you know, the pores, which I was trying to smooth out. So it's kind of a balance between that. So let's look at before and after now. But you see really mainly what this is doing is evening out the light across her face. You don't see as many, gosh, I'm not sure what to call it. See, I'm looking right here in this area. Let me zoom in. I'm not liking that. That could be a little bit smoother. So I'm going to go up in here, switch to my brush, sample this white. It's at 20%. Let's go to 20. And just make this a little smoother. Okay, these are very subtle, as if you haven't figured that out yet. Let's do before and after here. There we go. So there is before and after. And don't forget, if it's too much, which it never hurts to go a little bit over, we still have our opacity for this layer. So if we wanted to, we could go up here to this opacity. Let's go to 0. So that's kind of our before and after, and we can do something maybe in between if we think it's a little too strong. I'm just going to leave it at 100% for now, because we're done with her face, or at least for now. I mean, you get the idea. You'll just have to kind of practice and go with it. Let's go down over here on her arm. And generally what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep with the, there's a highlight on the edge of her wrist and arm down here. I'm trying to keep with that. And then, it's darker over here. So I'm trying to keep with that. And again, as I'm doing this, I'm constantly sampling new colors, right? And let's get rid of that. I say get rid of, but I should say smooth out this and that. Here's her arm. Let's smooth this out a little bit. Let's come down here. There's a little bit of a highlight here. I could even grab a highlight from up here if I want to run it down here to kind of emphasize this a little more. Let's use a softer brush here at 10%. Okay. Go over here. This takes a little bit of time. I don't know if you want to watch all this or if you want to race forward. See the finished result. We don't really need to do too much here in the shadow. You can't really see detail, so don't really need to smooth, but let's just try to keep a little consistency here. Probably shouldn't do that. Probably should keep that. Make her arm look more straight. That was too dark. Let's go to 10% and take that down a little bit. Okay. You kind of see how this shadow is, how it makes her arm look like she's, I know she's got a muscle here, but in an effort to make this a little bit smooth or make her arm look more, how should I say, linear. We don't need to really do her legs since she has hose on. We've done her skin on her arms. Again, this is kind of harsh right here. See that edge? I'm not liking that. So I'm going to take this color at 10% and kind of go over this edge to get rid of, there we go. That's a little bit better. So now let's look at our before and after. Scoot her down. There's our before and after. You can like look at her arm and stuff. And again, this takes a little practice. That might have been a little too heavy on her arm. You see how, we have this distinct line. So I'd go back in here. Isn't that funny how you can't really see it up close? It looks okay, but down here it looks like, wow, look at that line. So again, I'm going to grab this white color. I'm at 10%, and I'm just going to go along this edge to kind of get rid of it. Make it blend a little bit more into the shadow, make it look like it's wrapping a little bit better. Okay, so now let's take a look before, after. That's better. So I think that's pretty good. Still not terribly happy with this right here, but you could just work on this a little bit. Let's see if we can go in here, take this red color, we'll go to 20%. Actually, it's not bad. I'm being picky. So I think that's, I'm just going to leave well enough alone here. And you could spend some time on here and just keep tweaking this more and more and more. But I will tell you, the more you tweak, the more trouble you can potentially get in. I'm okay at it. Oh, let's talk about, we went, our whole purpose, or one of our main purposes of this was to smooth this out up here, wasn't it? We didn't even get to this part. Again, sample, we go to 20%. And you can see as I paint here, you can just see this kind of, all those, all that going away. And I don't want to, I can go over, go too far. Of course, I didn't do this part on its own layer, so I can't make this different than the rest. Now that's, I don't know. Let's see what that looks like. It's not looking great, but I think you get the idea, and you get some practice in here. If I want to take that away, if I went too far, I'd hit the eraser tool. I got an opacity of 30 there, and I can kind of come in here and back off. See, so it brought a little bit of texture back. Then I can go back to my brush at 10%, maybe put a little back if I want. Okay, I might make this edge over here a little darker by just grabbing a sample color down here and going like this. Boy, that's really showing up, isn't it? Let's go to, maybe that's too dark. Let's go with this color. And I'm going to go back to my eraser tool and take it back a little bit. It's a little strong. Let's see what we got. I don't really like it at all. So eraser tool, 30%. So we'll go something like that. So not too bad. We still got some texture in there, but I think you get the idea of being able to go in here and take some of the, smooth out the skin. So let's go back again. Before and after. We did have some stuff out here that we wanted to take care of. This is super easy stuff. Let's create a new layer and make a bigger brush. I'm on healing brush. This is obviously no-brainer stuff out here to correct this, right? And how are we going to take care of these shoes? I think we'll take care of those shoes in the next video.